Hello to everyone. Thank you for joining. Bonus points if anybody knows the movie. That was from one of my favorite songs from a movie. My name is Lauren Weeks, and I am so happy you guys joined. And what I thought I would do is just share a little bit of kind of the overview of Fuse. Some of you have already talked to myself or Katie or Michaela to hear a little bit about Fuse, but I thought I'd do a little bit of an overview of Fuse and kind of how we view what we do and why we do it, and then open it up for questions for you guys to ask anything that might be helpful to you and as you're thinking about us as a school or for social groups or anything. So first, just a little bit about logistics. We have two locations. We have our Lexington location and our Norwood location. Both locations are equally the same. Everything that happens in one happens in the other. We opened Lexington 10 years ago. Katie and I opened it together. And then actually 3 years ago now, or this is going to be our fourth year, we decided that families were traveling incredibly far distances to get to Lexington, and it really isn't fair to the child. So we decided to open a school on the other side of Boston so that families that come south of the city have a closer location, and your kids are not so stuck in their car for such long periods of time. In both locations, our ratio is 6 to 7 kids to 2 equally trained co-teachers. We do not have a teacher and an assistant model because of what we do and how we do it. We really need 2 teachers who are trained, and one teacher can lead and one teacher can facilitate the group, or vice versa. So both of our teachers are equally trained. A lot of parents ask what the training of our teachers are, and that really runs the gamut of a background in social education, a background in child development, a background in psychology. A lot of our teachers have masters. They have to have a bachelor's. But what we do is they come with us with a passion to work with children and a patience and love of kids. Our goal is really then to train them in the methodology and curriculum we use at Fuse. So they come with us with knowledge, but then we do a lot of the training. We have a preschool, a pre-kindergarten, a transitional kindergarten program, which is a year for kids that are either age-wise or just social, emotional development wise, want a year before kindergarten. And we call that our transitional kindergarten year. In Lexington, we have a kindergarten / first grade combined classroom. In Norwood this year, we will have a first grade / second grade combined classroom. So anyone who's looking at first grade, we really lean more towards Norwood so they can have a first and a second grade option. So it's not just a 1 year option. Our school goes for our kindergarten through or transitional kindergarten through second grade. We start at 8:30. Our preschool starts at 9. We have a half day in Norwood on Wednesday, a half day in Lexington on Thursday that ends at 12:30. Those half days are very much for the teachers to do trainings. I either bring in an outside specialist or I do an individual training, supervision, case presentations for the teachers on those half days. On all days, we have extended day and our social groups that go until 3:45. So kids can stay with us until 3:45 any of those days. For kids that come to the school and for kids that choose not to come to the school but want the Fuse social support, we have social groups that run after school. There are different offerings of that. There's groups that run from 2 to 3, so right after school. A lot of our school kids will do 1 or 2 social groups during the week. And then we have groups that start at 3 and then at 3:45 for those kids who go to a public school and want to come after school for a social group. Really, our social groups are a play-based model. We're working on the individual goals of the child. A social group is no more than 3 kids in a group. Typically it's 2 kids in a group, and we move up to 3 kids in a group. And we really focus on the individual goals in the group environment. The targeting is really around what the child needs at that moment. So it's quite different than school, and it's really focused on helping a child with an individual area of struggle or weakness that is they're having a tricky time with it during the school day. So we focused in that hour on a really enhanced support around that one area. There are many different focuses of the social play groups, and we work to pair children together to work on different areas, such as collaboration, turn taking. For some of our older kids, we do a lot of sports and games focused on winning and losing or being part of a team. A lot of social communication happens during the social groups. Like I said, they're very play-based. We're not working on behavioral per se skills. We're working on emotional regulation and helping kids understand their bodies. And we can have there are some kids, especially our littler kids, will start with an individual one-to-one session with an adult and then move up to the dyad or the 3 kids. And those start when school starts, the week after school starts in September. And we really want kids to commit to like a semester, basically, so that they can work with the same teacher and work with the same partner, the peer partner. So we ask people to commit for a semester at a time, and that's how you'll see the registration. I'm not really going to talk about camp groups, but we do have integrated camp programs as well, just to keep in your head. We're just finishing up our camp program from the summer. We also have vacation camps that run February and April. And again, next summer we will have June camps, and then next summer we'll do a 7-week camp as well. So kind of who we are and why we built Fuse. Katie and I started Fuse 10 years. This was our 10th year, so we're going into our 11th year. And my goal around Fuse was to build a program for kids to thrive and to be celebrated as who they are, and to work on social skills per se in a really holistic play-based model, where we're not trying to actually change the child, but we're trying to support who they are and help them understand who they are and give them the skills so that they can be their better selves. I think there's a lot of choices out there. Obviously, there's a lot of people that with neurodiverse profile, people are focusing on an ABA type program. We are definitely very different from an ABA type program in that our program is not about skill acquisition per se. Our program is really about celebrating and enhancing a connection, engagement, play, and working on that from kind of the inside out almost, and looking at who the child is and building their skills accordingly. We really focus on social and emotional development. We use a lot of evidence-based curriculums that work well, and we've seen it work well, and we embed them into our program and can work on them really simultaneously. It's kind of the beauty of our teachers that I don't believe there's one methodology that works for every child. So we bring in a lot of different styles and curriculums. Our main kind of foundational focus is the DIR floor time, because it's very play-based, but we bring in a lot of social thinking, and I come from more of a relationship development intervention, which is similar to floor time, but a little bit different. And we bring in a lot of mindfulness, a lot of sensory integration, a lot of regulation. Our goal is really to look at the whole child and see what they need, and build our intentional curriculum, which I'll talk about in a second, around what the child needs, and focus really on helping them build that engagement, build the problem solving, learn to be excited about being flexible and collaborating with their peers within play. As I spoke about a second ago, our goal is really supporting individual differences within a child. Every child comes to us, doesn't matter if they have a diagnosis, not a diagnosis, every child has their own strengths and weaknesses. And I think no child can fit in a specific box, and certainly school should not be a box. School should be a place to understand yourself better and learn how to thrive as your best self. So we look at all the pieces, and luckily at Fuse, we've built in an embedded team approach where we have a speech therapist on staff, we have an occupational therapist on staff, and then myself, who is a psychologist, and my teachers who come from varied backgrounds. We can really enhance and support all different areas, and look at a child from a holistic standpoint and see what they need and bring that in to their everyday. We look at all the rounds of social development. This is kind of a stair-step model of when I talk to teachers about what kids need. What I want to look at is not the top of the step, but really the bottom up approach of, we have to teach them to be motivated before we can teach them to be flexible. Many parents come in and talk about how their child is really inflexible and rigid. While that is the goal, if we start behaviorally coming down on them on, let's be more flexible, let's choose the blue cup over the red cup, or you must play this other child's game, what we're not appreciating is why and how, what's creating that function behind their rigidity. Maybe it's a language barrier, maybe it's the anxiety, maybe it's all of the above, maybe it's processing. What we want to do is figure out how to engage them and how to get them motivated. Once we do that, it is much easier to work on helping them become more flexible, because they, one, trust us, and they're motivated. And once you build in motivation, you really can work on some of these higher level skills. But if we go for higher level first, we've missed the foundation of what the social play is, and how we can work on that from a functional level rather than a skill acquisition level. As I said before, our program is all about intention. And if when people ask what is the difference between Fuse and another program, this most simple answer, but most complex in the way we utilize it, is about the intention behind our every move throughout the day, our every thought throughout the day. There are many programs, preschools, who are very well intended and very beautiful in what they do. But for our kids, there needs to be a much higher thought process and intention behind what they do. And that is a different level of thinking. There is many programs, and we have a lot of high schoolers and college kids that come in for the summer and intern with us. And I really say to them, the difference with intention within a preschool through early elementary age program is around, are we watching play or are we facilitating play? And when your intention is around facilitating and developing play, the way you go about how you're going to build that is a different thought process, and the support and the scaffolding that each child needs within that, and how a teacher thinks about it is quite different. Our goal is really to get kids to share that experience. One of the biggest ways can do that is thinking about the process over the product. So many families will come in and talk about all these amazing things their kids can do. They know all the planets, they know every dinosaur, they can blow me out of the water with any of that knowledge-based, any of it. But what they aren't doing is reading a room, or when I'm struggling holding a box and one of the sides is tipping over, they're not reading that I might need help. So what I really want kids to come in and see is that a social interaction and just the social engagement is about the process. I love that they know everything about dinosaurs, but in the end, I want them to be able to be in a reciprocal interaction with me, or consequently with a peer, and I want them to be able to read the room, and I want them to be able to join a per se dance, which is play, and see when is it the right time to talk about dinosaurs and when is that a bubble thought. And right now we're talking about making a sand volcano or something like that, or how we can add in our dinosaur knowledge into the sand volcano. One of the ways I thought I would just briefly share some of the ways we really help kids think about help them become engaged and help them think about the social environment is so much about our language. This is interesting to me because it's not at all about a social interaction. It's a study that looked at results of interviewees and interviewers. And what I find incredibly interesting and what I talk to my teachers all the time about is look at the tiny sliver that is words. When the impact of a message is all the other pieces of this pie graph, the words that come out of our mouths as parents and as teachers are so much less significant than our facial expressions that our body shows other people. So when we are pushing words on our kids, that's not how social interactions, that's not how people engage socially, and that's not what's read by other people. We want to really get our kids problem solving which in turn really helps them become flexible thinkers, helps them become perspective takers, and helps them read a peer rather than waiting for a peer to use their words to say that they're mad that they're not getting their turn at the blocks. When kids are having tricky situations with a lot of social play, it's because some of our kids aren't reading these incredible nonverbal communications that most people use, and they're waiting for the words. But the words for kids, typically developing kids, doesn't come until they're already upset or left the play. So what we're trying to teach our kids is really how to use holistic communication rather than just words. And what I share with our teachers is really the difference between commands, demands, prompts, and more declarative communication. And when I do parent trainings for families that are in the school, this is my number one thing that I want them to be mindful and thoughtful about, is how they communicate with their child. Demands, prompts, command, which is the imperative language, is only going to get your child to comply. What it's not going to get your child to do is think about the process and think about another person's perspective. When we give them phrases like, I notice, I'm wondering, it helps them think through what they're doing rather than just doing it without thinking. So this is a video of like the simplest task that happens at school every day is hanging up a backpack. This teacher could have gotten this done in 0.2 seconds if she would have just said to the little girl, hang up your backpack, unzip your jacket, and hang up your jacket. But her goal was to get the little girl to become involved in the process and think through what she's doing. So becoming mindful of what her job is in that moment. So it takes patience on the teacher's part. But in the end, over time, this is like September, October, over the year, this teacher, the goal is that she's prompting her less and less, and the student is more and more aware of what their job is and becomes independently mindful of it.
Layla, I wonder if you know where to hang up your backpack.
Oh. Let's try that again.
Layla, I wonder if you know where to hang up your backpack. I bet you can do it. It's a little heavy. Maybe this will be easier.
The goal is the teacher scaffolds when she needs help with motoric things like hanging and zipping.
Let's think about this coat. is a little stuck.
So it's not saying to her, unzip it. She said, I notice it's stuck. So then Layla can do the problem solving.
Got it. I notice.
So what we try to do, and there's a million examples of that, and you'll notice in any of these little videos that I'm about to show, is the teacher's language is really process focused and helping the child think about what they're doing rather than telling them what to do or answering the problem for them. Another area that we really focus on is getting kids mindful of their body and helping their body regulate meaning move together with either a peer or an adult. So you'll see in our halls, kids carrying things together all the time, because in the beginning, it's really hard to slow our body down and think about our body versus another person's body. But if we have to carry something together, it takes it out from being a language-based action where I have to say to these two friends, you guys need to walk together. Remember, walk together. Dylan, move back. Don't make sure you're waiting for your friend. It takes all of that language, because that's not my goal at this time. The intention around this is having these friends move together. So if they're carrying a bin together, someone drops the bin, oh, they have to wait for each other and they have to problem solve it on their own. And they have to work together to understand how one child's body regulates with another child's body. This is just another simple example of they're trying to paint with rolling the cars back and forth. So when one child's body goes up, another child's body goes down, and we give them the time to process it. We don't tell them what to do, but if they want that car to roll, they've got to regulate their bodies with each other's body. Another area we really work on is helping kids, because regulation is such an area for kids that can be really tricky and definitely affects their social interactions when their bodies are moving faster than their brains, which a lot of our kids are. We talk a lot about anticipating, this is not the words we use for the kids, but anticipating and inhibiting their actions based on their peers' actions. So we do a ton of starting and stopping so that kids think about, oh, wait, it's way more fun and way more important for me to send the car at the same time as my friend rather than me going by myself, because the goal is, let me think about the group more than just thinking about myself.
2, 1, go! Whoa!
So just silly little things like this are so important as we start to really help our kids connect with each other
2, 1,
and
go!
help them work together. Then there's other little things where we just are talking about kids connecting. The more we get kids to connect with each other and base their actions off of others, the more kids become mindful of noticing each other and noticing how their actions give feedback and are part and parcel of another peer's actions. This then becomes part of, wait, let me pause that for a second. This then becomes part of play. So if you think of what I was just showing you was kind of our beginning of the year, getting kids to understand what the dance is and how to join the dance and how to dance with a partner. Then you add in play, and they learn how to regulate their play with another person's play. And we really build that from a very simplistic place of pattern play. Every play, if you think about like even a 12-month-old peekaboo, I put a cloth over my face, the baby pulls the cloth off my face. I put the cloth over my face, the baby pulls the cloth. So there's a pattern within that play. So we can essentially build all play within patterns, which works for our kids to understand their role and how they can join in the play. So this is just a simple example of they're pretending to be a car repair shop. And one person is the parts and one person is the repair guy.
Underneath the car.
This was my pen. guys are
This
great.
the next example is how you can build block play, which everyone sees as a simple, everyone just like in kindergarten, first grade, just throws blocks on the floor and thinks it's going to be this magically beautiful interaction. It's actually epically hard for so many of our kids because there's so many levels of I have an idea. I really think my idea is amazing. And now I have to just figure out how to dance into somebody else's idea. And there's a lot of thought process, a lot of collaboration, a lot of problem solving with blocks. But if we break it down and give everyone a job and a role, it helps that collaboration feel okay and helps the child feel competent so that they can be successful in the block play. So there's 2 parts department guys and there's 2 builders.
I wonder what Wyatt needs.
I would say this one for cat. We like to have.
Oh, great.
One rectangle. No one. Up there. A curved one? No.
I hear a square. Maybe Seamus can bring the square. Yeah, there you go, Seamus. Great job, Wyatt and Seamus.
So just to give you the piece of that that last interaction, there's so much, when we talk about intention, there's so much intentionality with that the blocks need to be over on one side and the builders need to be over on the other side to make them have to communicate what they need. It'd be so much easier for Wyatt to just grab his pieces and use them. But the goal is, if the blocks are over here and our parts department is over here, Wyatt really has to use that social communication of what his plan is, what his needs are. And then the parts department guys are going to walk it over. So again, it looks easy in the moment, but that's a teacher kind of breaking it down and making it work for the kids. This is just another way to add roles and jobs within a simple activity. So there's really every interaction, every play outside is all about helping kids, seeing what they're interested in, and then building in a way for other kids to get involved and everyone to have a role and everyone to have an intention and a play role within that within the activity, within the pretend play. And that's really where the teachers come in and help that. So many of our friends kind of in a typical kindergarten, preschool, live kind of on the outskirts, not knowing how to join into play. Our goal is, as teachers, we're right in that play to help bring in a friend and figure out, hey, you can be the ball roller and you can be the ball retriever, and let's work together to build that in. So I just, before we go to questions, I just kind of wanted to talk about how a day in the life of Fuse, from, as I talked about before, it's a schedule per se looks very similar to any other school. It's all about how we build in this intentionality and the social emotional goals to the curriculum throughout the day. We also focus a lot on the sensory integration. Every child needs a lot of regulation. Our kids, that may be a piece of the puzzle that's a little bit larger in terms of what they need in a given day. So we have an occupational therapist in both of our locations. As I said before, we also embed a ton of sensory play within the day. So kids are getting all kinds of input. And you can see from that, if you watch the slideshow in the beginning, how much we're moving and how much we're doing creative things in the hallways. Luckily, in both schools, we have these like very long hallways that we just move down all day long on scooters. We have kids crawling. We have them just in different ways, moving so that they're working on their entire whole body movement, motor planning throughout the day. We also focus a lot on fine motor because that is also a piece of the puzzle that for a lot of our kids is a struggle. So we use handwriting without tears in our preschool pre-K program. It's learning without tears. In our kindergarten through second grade program, it's handwriting without tears. And this is really a way that we have found incredible success with helping our kids not putting the pencil in their hands first and really helping them appreciate curves, straights. Then we do it in sand, then we do it in shaving cream. Once we get to putting the pencil in their hand, they don't even care and they barely notice the pencil because we've built their confidence around how they are great at making letters, forming shapes, and the pencil is just one more piece of material that helps them connect with making letters, making words, all of that. Obviously in our even our transitional kindergarten through second grade, we definitely have an academic focus. A lot of people ask, what is our academic focus? We use Massachusetts benchmarks. The beauty of our program is it's small, so we can tailor this in a way that other programs cannot. And every child is leveled with their reading. So we can go from a kindergartner to a second grader and level them within the reading and give them what they need. So in our first, second grade program in Norwood, we may have 3 different levels going on, but we have the teachers to support that so that a high level reader can be working on the high level reading. We also are very conscious of a lot of our kids may be high level readers, but not great at comprehension. So we really tailor it to where they are. And I think the biggest difference that we focus on in terms of academics is making academics a collaborative problem solving process. So this is like a great example of we're working on writing, we're working on thinking about our friends. And so it's a language arts activity, but the intention behind it is we have to think about what our friend wants for their pancakes because that's what they're making. They're doing a cooking project. But again, it's working on they're working on spelling, they're working on fine motor. So we embed the academics within our mission of working on the social thinking and the problem solving. Oh wait, I explained it backwards, so I'm going to do this other one first. This is the pancake one.
Which one do you want? I want chocolate chips and plain. Okay. That equals just chocolate chip. And I don't like blueberries. Do you want syrup on your pancake? Yes. Actually, no. Hey John, syrup? Yes. Hey John, this is Hey John, do you want?
So this next activity is another example of the theme in this. All of our classrooms are done with a theme-based approach where we build all of our curriculum around different themes. So this activity is they're launching a pretend space shuttle.
Okay? 15, where is 15 Space Jams? 6. Something got the math. It's 6, right? Yep. 6 is right. Give you the math. There's the math. To Venus. And you're doing mission. Is this right? Yep, mission number 20. Right. 10 seconds. Blast off. Oh, press those seatbelts. Boop. Guys, blasting off and boop. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
So I thought I would just share this briefly. This is a parent testimony, a parent speaking about Fuse at a recent one of these talks. It's just a couple minutes of a parent speaking about Fuse. Well, yes. So this is Marie and Justin, and their son is Tony.
We actually know Lauren very well. She's been so helpful. And just to give you a little background on Tony, our son, he was diagnosed at 22 months with an autism diagnosis. And it wasn't very apparent to us or even his pediatrician. He seemed kind of typical, outgoing, social. But when we went to a behavioral pediatrician, we kind of learned that, yeah, he does kind of have some delays. So we got him into ABA therapy starting pretty much right away. We were fortunate to get him in a program, and he ultimately did ABA for about 2 years. And when he was a little bit into being 3, maybe the spring, so maybe 3.5, we were preparing for the fall, trying to figure out what are we going to do next. It was kind of a dilemma for us because we really wanted to make sure we set him up for success. He was starting to build his vocabulary, but still a little bit in his own shell somewhat. And, we were weighing our options. We thought we wanted to do an ABA-based program that was going to give him exposure to typically developing kids. We thought that maybe was the next step. Thankfully, we kind of drove by and saw Fuse. Marie saw Fuse.
The billboard.
Yeah, we saw the billboard. And I said, I emailed or called Lauren and said, we don't think this is something for now. Maybe this is for a few years from now, but can you tell us about your program? And Lauren really put things into layman's terms for us, kind of explained the modalities at Fuse and how it's different than ABA, and how, kind of the earlier you can get your child into a program like this, the more beneficial, because it's just more organic in the way that they teach, so instead of like Lauren's been talking about with the prompting based is very much the ABA way. And I think it was very good for the very, very young age for Tony. But the Fuse methodologies using more kind of social curiosity and natural consequences just is a much more natural way to learn. And I think it translates more into real life. That concept of scaffolding, like having people at Fuse overseeing the play, so that it kind of keeping the kids kind of in with some guardrails, so to speak, but then stepping away when things are going well, and getting involved when things aren't going well. So kind of keeping them on a path for learning. And we've seen some really great growth in Tony. And what we decided to do was last April, we said, let's start with the vacation camp and kind of see how that would go, with the hope that we could kind of continue from there. And
we used as evaluation process.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure it was a good fit. And so he just did a 4-day camp. And Marie, do you want to tell them kind of about how that went?
Yeah, so it was Monday through Thursday, and then I noticed by Friday, usually after he has his ABA program, I would take him to the playground before I would pick his sister up, because we had a little bit of a downtime. And I took him to the playground. I noticed just after 4 days of being at Fuse, he actually started like looking at the kids at the playground and like going up to them. He didn't know quite what to do once he got up to them, but he would just like actually acknowledge them. And before, he wouldn't acknowledge them unless it was his sister, then he would play with her. But other kids, he wouldn't even act like they were there. But then he started noticing little kids, and he would just like go up and like kind of like stare at them. And not really, so I'd have to kind of facilitate and be like, oh, Tony, say hi, my name is Tony, and kind of like let him know, say like, do you want to go on the slide, and kind of help him. But he wanted to start engaging in with children. And even his ABA therapist said that she noticed a difference when he came back, even that Friday, because they had him, he was gone for the 4 days, and he came back that Friday for his ABA, and she said she noticed a difference just from like 4 days. But then the downside was he started getting bored with ABA.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of knew that he was ready. Once he got a little taste of Fuse, he kept wanting to go back to space camp because that was the theme. So he's telling everybody that he was going to space school.
Yeah, so we did that camp. We really saw that it was going to be a good fit. We were very kind of nervous to start with, but everyone at Fuse was very helpful and very kind of nurturing, made Tony feel comfortable, made us feel comfortable. We did some summer camps there as well, and then started with the core programming in the fall. And it's really been great. You know, the staff is fantastic. We get daily emails with kind of how the group is doing. We'll get a weekly email kind of more specific to Tony, just kind of touching base on how he's doing. There's periodically more detailed reporting that we get as well as like
And
the
social
plan.
groups.
The plans kind of get tweaked along the way, you know, for each individual child. And Katie and Lauren are also, you know, very available if we have questions or email and touching base. They're great. So we really feel like the environment at Fuse is really like an ideal environment for kids like Tony or any other kind of similar social challenges. They can really thrive in that type of environment. And it's funny, his sister is 7 and she sees like pictures of the things that Tony's doing all day at Fuse, and she's like, why can't I be, you know, there? That just seems like so much fun.
And she's like, all he does is play. That's all he does. He just goes to school and plays all day. Like,
Yeah, so it's kind of, you know, learning and therapy in disguise, and he loves it. You know, the kids are playing with mud and playing with goo and, you know, all these different things for their sensory, and it's a great package the way it's all put together. And then the fact also that right on site you have access to the speech if you want, the OT, like Marie was saying, the social groups are right there, which are really helpful to even more hone in on certain areas in the afternoons. So we wanted to come on today. Really, we were the ones that asked Lauren if we could come on every now and then and share, just because we're pretty passionate about wanting other families to know how good it is, because there's really, you know, a small window of time where kids are little in that 3, 4, 5. And I think that that's such a pivotal point. If they can be in the right environment, they can really, you know, thrive and grow from there. So we wanted to be available for other parents if there were questions. It was funny when we went to that camp.
So I will stop sharing my screen. So I hope that was somewhat helpful for you guys. I'm happy to answer questions that anybody has, really about anything that might be helpful. Just go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know if you have questions. And I know some of you I've talked to, so if you have not, if you're interested in the school, you can certainly email me to set up a tour. Some of you guys have tours set up. My email is lauren@fuseprogram.com. And if you have specific questions about your child, I'm happy to talk to you specifically about your child to see if it's a fit for your child. And a lot of people some people get nervous when they hear the amount of language some of the kids on the video have. That is because they have been at Fuse. Not everyone has this beautiful social language coming in. It's a work in progress. And that is from the beauty of our OT and speech therapists and just kind of the whole piece. Like Tony, who the parents were talking about, his language coming in was little bits and spurts. And now he is just this amazing communicator. But I think that would be one of the biggest things. The parents saw a massive explosion once he was kind of out of that ABA model, because it was so prompted. He wasn't given the time or the space to be a spontaneous communicator. And once he was able to be a spontaneous communicator, the language really exploded. And now he's just a nonstop talker. So yeah, so if people have questions, or feel free to email me if it's more specific to your child.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you. This
Yes,
is
hi.
actually Katie Poirier.
Yes, I'll see you
could not-
tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. I just could not. I was trying to figure out how to change my my username, and I'm not that facile with this.
It's fine.
program. So, but yes, we will see you tomorrow. We're excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining. If you don't have questions, or you can shoot me an email if you have more questions. But thank you guys for joining, and I hope it was somewhat helpful. I always look at it as, even if Fuse is not in your journey, just thinking about your kids in a different way and celebrating who they are and helping them become kind of social problem solvers. That's my passion, and Fuse is just one little way to help kids. But if anything from tonight might be helpful in how you interact with your kids, you also, I'm not a big technology person, but we also do on YouTube have a ton of trainings that I've done. Not even trainings, like parent discussions, where I've talked a lot about these different areas, the communication, regulation, problem solving, just to give parents tips. That is you can watch any of them, and hopefully it gives you a little nugget of a new trick in your bag to help engage or help your child more social motivated with different things. So you can, that's, I think if you just search Fuse program or Fuse school and program, it'll come up. Thank you guys so much for joining, and feel free to email me if you guys have questions.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yes, thank you.